Chapter 691, Comparing Network? For Mu Weiniang's boyfriend to accompany her and enter the stage was out of Zhang Yang's expectation. It never crossed his mind that this boy was this wild and arrogant, and with jealousy birthed inside his herd, he angrily shouted, "I don't give a damn care about who you are. This is a company-to-company talk, so get the fuck out, else you'll find yourself unable to eat well. This company belongs to our family. You want me to scram? Why don't you get the hell out as well? Also, don't talk to me like you're a decent man. I've seen tons of people pursue their own interests under the guise of decent deeds, but never once have I ever seen one as shameless as you are. Do you think only you can have some personal network and connections, while we don't have any whatsoever?" At the moment, there was also a scowl on Wei Zhongchao's face, yet he was cautious in nature and faintly felt that Tang Xiu was somewhat familiar, though he couldn't recall anything about him at the moment. Nevertheless, seeing that Tang Xiu was so young and yet was not afraid to act arrogantly, he grew discontent inside, so he said, "Young man, I think you look somewhat familiar. May I know what is your great background?" Tang Xiu could not help laughing and said, "I thought I was quite well known before, never thought that you don't even know me, honest. I'm now relieved. Your surname Tang, right?" Zhang Danyang suddenly got up and exclaimed coldly. "Young as you are, and yet so arrogant and rampant. Didn't you say you also have your own personal connections? Care to make us experience it?" "Why should I?" asked Tang Xiu. "Who are you to me? My elder or something? What a pretentious prick, a load of trash." Zhang Danyang snorted coldly. "Yet you still dare to bluff before us? That network you said you own is nothing but a fart. Weiniang, I'm sure you can see that this stupid guy is unworthy of you. I have 10,000 means to toy him if I want to." Mu Weiniang was about to open her mouth, but she found Tang Xiu waving his hand to her, and his expression was a bit chilling. He was apparently incensed by Zhang Danyang. She suddenly felt a bit of pity towards Zhang Danyang, for this shameless man had provoked someone he could not afford to. Tang Xiu squinted his eyes, took a drag of his cigarette, and then took out his mobile phone. He stepped out to disrupt things since he knew that Mu Weiniang might lose these two clients because of him. Therefore, he already thought it through before entering the room. He would help her pull some businesses regardless of the final outcome. The one thing he did not lack was a network and personal connections. He then opened a news blog with his mobile and quickly browsed it, searching the name of Wei Zhongchao's company and their names, and finally marked all the cell numbers of his friends who had businesses, and then typed a text message to be sent to them. "My girlfriend has been bullied by Shanghai's Shandor Industries owner, Zhang Danyang, and the Blessed Fortune Jewelry's old director, Wei Zhongchao. Whoever knows these two guys, please quickly get a hump on to cease your relationship with them, since the moral standing of these two fellas is way too bad. Also, I'd like to advertise my girlfriend's advertising agency, and if you ever have the need of the company's services and how to get in touch with them, it's Shanghai's Grace Regale Advertising." After pressing the send button, Tang Xiu looked up to Zhang Danyang and Wei Zhongchao, whose faces were full of contempt. "Do you want to show us your personal connection, kid?" Zhang Danyang derided. "How ridiculous. Do you think just by sending a text message you can help draw some clients to the door of the Grace Regale Advertising? To think that you can also pretend to this extent really never crossed my mind. For a guy who doesn't dare to tell his own identity, what means could he have, huh?" Wei Zhongchao echoed with a face full of disdain. "I originally wanted to leave, but I erased that thought now. I want to see how much weight you really have." Tang Xiu himself did not have full assurance that the text message he sent out would replace the entire amount of job orders of the Shandor industry and Blessed Fortune Jewelry combined. But he was confident that he could help draw some business to Mu Weiniang. After pondering for a moment, he slowly stretched out 3 fingers and, without being salty nor weak, said, 30 minutes. I'll pay you one. 200,000 yuan if I can't pull some companies to ask the service of the Grace Regale advertising within these 30 minutes. But if it happens, do you dare to pay me 100,000 each? 200,000 yuan? Is this a bet? Zhang Danyang and Wei Zhongchao exchanged looks and gave cold shoulders. They were both wealthy billionaires, and 200,000 for them was nothing but the price of their meal and wine in a certain venue. The usual gathering with their friends to play mahjong sometimes cost them several times more than this. Wei Zhongchao, who still had some concerns previously, was completely relieved after hearing the amount of the bet proposed by Tang Xiu. He preferred toying with a nobody above all others, so he rested his arm on the armrest and laughed loudly. "Young man, you're too stingy. What would 200,000 yuan be enough for? To fill the slit between your teeth? Let's play a bit bigger. 2 million. How about it?" "Yeah, each of us will give you 2 million if you win." Zhang Danyang also grinned and echoed. "And you only need to pay 1 million to each of us. Isn't it a good deal?" A bit of hesitation was shown on Tang Xiu's face as he turned to look at Mu Weining. As if having made up his mind, he loudly said, "Why should I be afraid of you if you want to bet with me?" 20 million. "I'll give you 20 million if you win." Puff. Cough cough. Zhang Danyang and Wei Zhongchao were choked by Tang Xiu's proposal. Never had they ever seen a pretentious prick such as him. Could this trash even have 20 million yuan? One must know that 20 million was already a huge number for them. Zhang Danyang chuckled and grinned. 20 million, eh? It's no big deal for us. But you, young man, just don't brag before us. It's not that I'm looking down on you with you coming from a poor house, but it's quite a bizarre thing for you to be able to fork out 20 million yuan. Tang Xiu opened his mouth to speak, but then suddenly turned to look at Mu Weining and asked, "Tell me, Weining, how much is your advertising company worth? Is it valued at around 20 million yuan?" Since the beginning, as she heard the gambling bet Tang Xiu proposed to the two men, Mu Weining had been obviously baffled and stunned. But she then gradually realized that Tang Xiu was playing the role of a pig who swallowed tigers just to slaughter these two men. Smart as she was, she quickly followed the script and played in tandem with Tang Xiu, quickly pretending to look tense and anxious, and replied, "Tang Xiu, don't act stupid, will you? Gambling is a nuisance, and you must not gamble with them. Besides, they are all rich people, we can't afford to play with them." Seeing that Mu Weining was able to respond and play in tandem with him, Tang Xiu laughed inwardly. Yet he still pretended to be angry out of shame and fumingly shouted, "Who said we can't afford to play with them? Isn't your advertising company earning enough money? Let me gamble with them if you still care about me, else." Mu Weining hurriedly grabbed Tang Xiu's sleeve and anxiously pleaded, "Tang Xiu, please listen to me. This is not about how I care about you or not. We still have a life to live on in the future, and we'll be relying on this advertising company to make money. If you were to lose it now, we'll be..." Like a gambler who had lost his rationality, Tang Xiu jumped and shouted, "Who said I'm gonna lose? I'm confident I can win against them. Don't tell me you don't believe that I have a very good personal network?" Mu Weining also seemed to be incensed by Tang Xiu and shouted back, "Gambling, gambling, and gambling. You only know how to gamble. Have our future even ever crossed your mind, just once? Take the company and use it as you will since you want to stake it as a bet." With that said, she directly sat down on the sofa next to Tang Xiu, lowered her head and sulked. Tang Xiu then looked at Zhang Danyang and Wei Zhongchao and shouted, 20 million, then. I'll put this company as stake. At the worst, we'll just sell the company to pay you if we lose, but how about you? Are you two still willing to pay me 20 million yuan each?" Zhang Danyang's and Wei Zhongchao's expressions slightly changed, for it never occurred to them that Mu Weining, who was usually rational and incomparably thoughtful, would unexpectedly be willing to give the company to Tang Xiu as a gambling stake. This kind of unrestrained gamble was also not a trivial matter to them, for they would gain a lot if they won, and yet would grieve to death if they lost, as it would affect the operation of their companies. Wei Zhongchao shot a look at Tang Xiu and then shifted his eyes on Mu Weining again, and suddenly spoke in a deep voice. We'll have our gamble. But we must have an agreement in advance. You said that you have a strong network, but you have to clearly define how much is the project value you can pull in. Else, if you are indeed able to pull some cooperation projects worth only 1 yuan, is it reasonable for us to pay you 20 million? The value? Tang Xiu stared blankly for a second and looked hesitating before he said, Isn't it enough for a project worth 100,000 yuan? A project worth 100,000? Humph. Zhang Danyang snorted. Are you kidding me? I tell you, kid. You gotta put out more money if you want to gamble. What I see is 20 million as a gambling stake. With that amount, shouldn't you at least pull in a 10 million yuan worth project? Mu Weining, who sat beside Tang Xiu, suddenly raised her head and yelled, Hey, that's going too far. An advertising project worth 10 million yuan? Were the projects you two gave to me before even worth 10 million yuan? Tang Xiu suddenly turned his head to Mu Weining and called out, Shut up. 10 million they want, then 10 million it is. How can I let them look down on me? I'll admit my loss if the advertising projects that come here within these 30 minutes are not worth 10 million yuan. Tang Xiu, you, Mu Weining looked very tense. Tang Xiu ignored her and stared intently at Zhang Danyang and Wei Zhongchao, and shouted, What about you two now? Number 20 million, don't act like a pretentious prick before me. At this time, only then did Zhang Danyang and Wei Zhongchao thoroughly feel at ease. They just did not believe that Tang Xiu could pull in advertising projects worth 10 million yuan to the Grace Regale advertising. This bloke was nothing but a petty nobody inside out. He should be penniless and was probably with Mu Weining due to her beauty on one hand, and was to become her toy boy. Nevertheless, it was a pity that Mu Weining, such a proud daughter of the heaven, turned into an idiot when encountering an affair with feelings involved. 10 minutes later, Zhang Danyang and Wei Zhongchao made a call, took out their bank cards and put them on the table. After which, a text message was sent to their mobile phones to prove that 20 million yuan had been transferred to each bank card. Everything had been settled, and a smile broke out on Tang Xiu's face. He then took his mobile phone that he had turned off silently before. After rebooting, the text message notifications started ringing unceasingly. Tang Xiu opened them and immediately looked up to see Zhang Danyang and Wei Zhongchao, and said in a deep voice, Weining, tell me now about the financial situation of your Grace Regale advertising. The financial liquidity is now around 12 million yuan, more or less, said Mu Weining. In addition to that, we also have more than 40 million yuan invested in various projects. Chapter 692, Is this a joke? After giving a brief outline about the financial account of her company openly to the two men, Zhang Danyang and Wei Zhongchao, Mu Weining's previous worries and anger subsided as she sat next to Tang Xiu and looked the two men with a bit of pity as well as sympathy. At the same time, she was also a bit excited. Though they were the players in this gambling, the one who benefited the most was actually her own company. She did not know how many people Tang Xiu was acquainted with, but she had full trust in him. Ring ring ring. His phone buzzed after Tang Xiu rebooted it. He looked at the screen and the name displayed there was someone he did not expect, Chu Yuan. Tang Xiu hesitated for a while, and after he put it through, he said, Mr. Chu? From the mobile phone, Chu Yuan's voice transmitted out, Tang Xiu, I just inquired about them. Those two companies in your text message are indeed listed in Shanghai. I myself don't have many intersections with them, so it's rather inconvenient to deal with them. However, my company is preparing an advertising for its product and is currently seeking an advertising company to cooperate with. I just sent a facsimile to the Grace Regale advertising. Once they receive it and are willing to design the advertisement plan for my company to be carried on with the packaging and marketing processes, I'll immediately inform the finance department to transfer 30% of the deposit for the total investment needed for the advertisements. Tang Xiu hesitated for a moment before replying, I see, got it. Chu Yuan, if you have some time in the near future, let's go out for a few drinks. Also, I haven't seen that little item from you yet. So, we'll study it the next time we meet. All right. Chu Yuan replied. Anyways, there's also another thing. I'm no longer the young lord of the Imperial Garden. Even though I'm not completely separated from them, my present identity is the foreign affairs elder of the Imperial Garden, and all the businesses under the Imperial Garden I used to manage have also been taken back. I don't think I can invest much in advertising for the rest other than my own 2 companies as of now. I understand, said Tang Xiu calmly. He was not particularly clear about Chu Yuan's departure from the Imperial Garden and why he would renounce such a high status. After all, Chu Yuan could get a lot of advantages by using the Imperial Garden's channels with that aloof status and would be of great help for his future development. However, what the others were thinking had nothing to do with him whatsoever. Chu Yuan showed him goodwill first, thus he only needed to remember this favor. Zhang Danyang and Wei Zhongchao exchanged dismayed looks. The call Tang Xiu received made them a bit curious, though contempt was still mainly in their minds. It was nothing but bluff and bluster in their eyes. Knock, knock. The reception room number 2 was knocked and the general manager's secretary opened the door and came inside in a hurry, while bringing 2 facsimiles to Mu Weining, and then said excitedly, Boss, our business department has just received these 2 faxes. One from the New Idea training firm and the other from the Imperial Wherewithal Venture. They are preparing to hand over all the ads of their companies for this year to our company. The New Idea training firm and the Imperial Wherewithal Venture? Mu Weining was baffled and seriously read the 2 faxes with a strange expression. She then forwarded them to Tang Xiu and shot a pitying look at Zhang Danyang and Wei Zhongchao. That was much a direct shock to Zhang Danyang and Wei Zhongchao. They had been running a business in Shanghai for many years and had some knowledge of the New Idea training firm, as well as the Imperial Wherewithal Venture. Each of these 2 companies was not inferior to their business at all. Let me see it. Zhang Danyang got up and directly strode to Tang Xiu's front. Tang Xiu just glanced at the 2 faxes and handed them to Zhang Danyang with a smile. After half a minute, Zhang Danyang's complexion turned nasty, and anger could be seen filling his eyes. He knew who sent these 2 letters of intent to the Grace Regale Advertising. They were the companies belonging to Chu Yuan, a freaking talent of the business community in Shanghai who was also managing other companies other than these 2. Do you know Chu Yuan? Asked Zhang Danyang to Tang Xiu in disbelief. Yeah, kind of. Tang Xiu shrugged his shoulders. Ring ring ring. Tang Xiu mobile phone rang again. When he looked at the number displayed on the screen, a smile was suddenly outlined on the corner of his mouth. After putting it through, he directly turned on the loudspeaker and said, Hey, brother Zhang, did you read the text I sent you? I did read your text, brother Tang. I never heard of Zhang Danyang, that Shundor Industries CEO, though. So he should only be a small fish. But I know the owner of the Blessed Fortune Jewelry, not a big name either. Yet these bastards dare to annoy my sister-in-law? What impudence. Anyways, I'm going to hand over all the advertisements of my Xinyang group to sister-in-law's Grace Regale Advertising for the next 3 years. Brother Tang, just give me these 2 bastards to deal with if you don't have the time to do so. I will make them disappear from the business world in Shanghai in at most a week. Zhang Yueming's voice was broadcasted from the mobile phone. Tang Xiu let out a faint smile while glancing at the disbelieving faces of Zhang Danyang and Wei Zhongchao. Brother Zhang, there's no need to bother you in dealing with these 2 small shrimps. If anything, thanks a lot for this advertising cooperation. I'll treat you to a drink another day. Okay, then. I'll be the one who does the treating later, though, to apologize for my son's action toward you, brother Tang. All right. Just as he hung up the phone and was about to speak, Tang Xiu's phone rang again. Hello, Brother Gu. What exactly is the situation, Brother Tang? From where those two bastards jumped from? To think that they even dare to provoke you? Do you want me to employ my network to deal with them? Thanks for the kind intention, Brother Gu. I'll deal with this matter myself. All right, then let it be since you don't need me to deal with them, Brother Tang. By the way, my Dingshan Media also has an advertising business, and since sister-in-law also runs an advertising company, I think we can have a cooperation. Thus, I'll provide some important channels of the Dingshan Media's advertising business, and the Grace Regale advertising only needs to pay 1 yuan annually. No, Brother Gu. Just give us a cheaper price. You don't need to exempt us for free. It's all right. Our brotherhood is much stronger than money. Anyways, I'll disturb you no longer, then. Come to visit my Dingshan Media if you have time. I have good tea here. Okay. At this time, Zhang Danyang and Wei Zhongchao already had a horrified look on their faces. The dignified owner of the Dingshan Media, Zhang Yuming. This bloke turned out to even have such a deep relationship with him? Suddenly, the duo found themselves falling into a trap that was specifically dug up by Tang Xiu for them. This thought sent a chill all over their bodies, and their hearts seemed to have fallen into an ice hole. Ring ring ring. Just as Tang Xiu connected the phone and turned on the loudspeaker, Jin Xinkui's voice came out from the mobile. What about those two blokes who provoked sister-in-law, Brother Tang? Let this Jin Xinkui kill them. Nah. There's no need to do that to these two small shrimps. I can deal with them, said Tang Xiu with a smile. I just learned that sis-in-law is running an advertising company, continued Jin Xinkui. If that is the case, then all the advertisements of my Jinda Estates marketing will be completely handed over to the Grace Regale advertising. Also, the new project we are cooperating with, I'll also hand over its advertisement to them. Shortly put, we are like close relatives, Brother Tang. Just tell me directly whenever you need me to do anything. This Jin Xinkui is ready to risk everything and do it for you beautifully. All right, I'll keep it in mind, said Tang Xiu with a smile. Jin Xinkui did not hang up but continued speaking. I know who Zhang Danyang is from that Shun door industry. I have had some business dealings with his company before. A few real estate projects I just released to the market were renovated with the cooperation with his company as of recently. I'll terminate this cooperation with him later. Also, I'll also spread out the news to the construction company's circle in Shanghai that whoever dares to cooperate with his Shun door industry will have to face me, Jin Xinkui. Tang Xiu could not help but burst into a laughter and said, well, it's your call, brother. Anyways, let's meet and have a drink some other day. Deal. After hanging up the phone, Tang Xiu found that Zhang Danyang's body was already trembling and slumped down on the sofa with a face devoid of blood. There was also a panicked and horrified look on his face, whereas Wei Zhongchao looked somewhat anxious when he looked at him, and occasionally glanced at Zhang Danyang with a bit of a sympathetic look. Ring ring ring. The mobile phone rang again. In the next half an hour, Tang Xiu received dozens of calls, and each caller spoke two matters. One was to deal with Zhang Danyang and Wei Zhongchao, and the other one was to give their company's advertisement jobs to the Grace Regale advertising. Tang Xiu directly refused the first one, as he did not need to bother others to do it, though he did accept their offer to hand over the advertising of their companies to the Grace Regale advertising. After more than half an hour, Zhang Danyang and Wei Zhongchao were very restless, like they were sitting on a cushion filled with needles. They realized that they had annoyed a big trouble for themselves. This guy before them turned out nothing like a nobody who loved to brag, but he did have a very terrifying network. Even his identity was perhaps extraordinary. What made them speechless was that the business department of the Grace Regale advertising had received dozens of faxes, containing letters of intent and agreements, and also transferred a total of 200 million yuan in deposits altogether to their financial department's public account. It was 200 million. The total assets of Zhang Danyang's company were even less than 200 million, whereas the total assets of Wei Zhongchao's company was a little more than that. However, he was not the sole shareholder of the company. Even if he was to add up all his personal assets, it would probably not exceed 150 million. Tang Xiu put away his mobile phone, then looked at the two men and casually said, "You two have lost. These 2 bank cards should be mine, no?" Distressed, long-faced, and sorrowful, Zhang Danyang's face was that of pleading and begging as he said, "Mr. Tang, I judged you like what a dog would do before. Please be magnanimous, do not stoop down to my level. This 20 million is yours, the pin is 123456, please accept it. And please spare my business and forgive me this once. I'll immediately move my company from this edifice and never see Boss Mu again in this lifetime." Wei Zhongchao somewhat sympathized with him and was even rejoicing that his blessed fortune jewelry had many branch offices spread out across the country, though it was indeed headquartered in Shanghai. In particular was the business in Hong Kong, as it accounted for half of his business shares. Hence, his foundation would not be shaken. But Zhang Danyang was different. His business was mainly established in Shanghai. Although he also had a market in the surrounding cities, the amount was pathetic. If Tang Xiu really was ruthless with him, it was highly likely that Zhang Danyang would be done for. Chapter 693, Harboring Resentment. Although Wei Zhongchao lost 20 million yuan and was also shocked by Tang Xiu's terrifying network, he did not have much concern about it. He thought that if he left in such a crestfallen manner today, it would not take long until he became a laughingstock in the business community, so he slowly said, "We had a gamble and I lost. So this 20 million is yours, Mr. Tang. Everyone loves beauty and so does Chief Zhang, who likes Chief Mu, the reason why he pursues her regardless of everything. Please don't stoop down to our level since you're a much better and more magnanimous person, Mr. Tang. Please give him a way out to make a living." Looking at Wei Zhongchao's relaxed expression, Tang Xiu slightly furrowed his brows. He thought for a while and then took out his mobile phone to dial Hao Lei's cell number. After Hao Lei's respectful voice came out from the mobile phone, he directly asked, "How much do you know about the Blessed Fortune Jewelry?" "It's a small jewelry company whose survival depends on our Grand Fortune Jewelries, boss. The Everlasting Feast Hall is currently holding 20% of its shares, and the source of their goods are also provided by Grand Fortune Jewelry's channels. The company is headquartered in Shanghai, and its general manager, Wei Zhongchao, holds 55% of the company's shares," answered Hao Lei. Right as an unusual expression appeared on Tang Xiu's face, Wei Zhongchao's face turned vigilant, and Tang Xiu said slowly, "I want to see the Blessed Fortune Jewelry go bankrupt and Wei Zhongchao has nothing left anymore. I'll hand this matter over to you, and I want the result within a week." "Understood," replied Hao Lei respectfully. Tang Xiu hung up the phone. After stuffing his phone, he sneered, "You still appeal for another's mercy and not start to request for your own good fortune? You can be sure that you will regret what you did today within a week, for I'll make sure to make it happen." Wei Zhongchao suddenly got up and intently stared at Tang Xiu, and asked, "Who exactly did you call?" "An employee, or rather, my subordinate," said Tang Xiu faintly. "I think you should know her name, though. She's Hao Lei, the person in charge of the Grand Fortune Jewelries." Wei Zhongchao's body shivered and his legs turned weak as he directly slumped on the sofa and shouted in disbelief, "This is impossible. How can you know Chief Hao Lei? You're bullshitting me. The Grand Fortune Jewelries is a very prominent business in Hong Kong. Even if you do have a very good network in the mainland, it's impossible for you to have any influence there." As he said that, he seemed to realize something and quickly grabbed his mobile phone and dialed Hao Lei's cell number. After his call was connected, he squeezed out a smile and his tone turned very respectful as he said, "Hello, Chief Hao. I'm Wei Zhongchao from Blessed Fortune Jewelry. It's been a while since the last time I met you. Anyways, my wife recently got a top perfume from France. When do you have some time? How about I personally visit you in Hong Kong and bring it to you? Hao Lei's cold voice came from the mobile phone. I don't know how and why you offended my boss, Wei Zhongchao. But if you're tactful and sensible enough, you had better transfer your Blessed Fortune Jewelry shares to the Grand Fortune Jewelries. Otherwise, you can be sure that I'll use every means necessary to make you have nothing left in this world, and also send you away to a mine in Africa. You can hope to work to the bones and die there. What? Wei Zhongchao exclaimed. The mobile phone in his hand instantly fell to the floor and he slumped on the sofa with a face devoid of color. It was like all the strength in his body was siphoned away at this moment. Hao Lei's words were like a thunderblast in his heart that shook him, making him perplexed to a megrim state. The time ticked by bit in a bizarre atmosphere. As Wei Zhongchao sobered up from his languishment, he raised his head with difficulty to look at Tang Xiu. Under the gaze of Mu Weining and Zhang Danyang, his body swayed and knelt down in front of Tang Xiu, begging with a trembling voice. I'm aware it was me who took the road to ruin myself. But could you consider the elderly and the young in my family and spare me this time? I'm willing to transfer 40% out of my 55% shares to the Grand Fortune Jewelries, while I keep the remaining 15% to allow me to live in retirement and to support the young in my family. Is this all right with you? Logically speaking, I should be ruthless and not spare you. But given that you did not go too far in this matter, so be it, said Tang Xiu calmly. However, you won't keep that 15% shares, but will exchange it to cash and then find a place to live out your life in retirement. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Tang. Wei Zhongchao wiped off the sweat on his face and got up in trepidation. He did not glance at Zhang Danyang again and left, battered out of his senses. As Zhang Danyang found that Tang Xiu's eyes caught him, he suddenly tensed up. He did not kneel down but put a very low gesture and beseeched piteously, I'm willing to take out another 20 million yuan, Mr. Tang, and give all of it to you in compensation for spending your time. My company has been in business for decades, and it's been with great difficulty that I brought it to its current state. Please spare me, do not punish me too heavily. Can you let me go this once? I swear that I'll hide far away and never ever appear in front of you again. Tang Xiu raised his brows, looked at Mu Weining's tranquil expression and waved at her. After getting up and walked outside, his voice then sounded into the room, you have 3 days to fulfill your commitment. I'm sure it will be very difficult for you to base yourself in Shanghai anymore in the future given the trouble you caused today. You had better think of leaving Shanghai and do your business in some other place. General Manager's office. After Mu Weining entered the room, she closed the door with her backhand and looked at it directly. With nearly no delay, she rushed towards Tang Xiu and straightly hugged him, leaving him baffled. Thank you. The words came from the bottom of Mu Weining's heart. She was secretly rejoicing that Tang Xiu came to her company and was very moved for everything Tang Xiu did for her. Else, she could have a belly full of anger and unable to utter anything facing those two shameless and despicable low lives, and even lost some of her business. It was a blessing in disguise. This sentence truly depicted the situation she was currently in. And what had happened today made Mu Weining, who was proud deep down inside, realize how important was it to have a man who would shelter her from the wind and rain, and took her to the safe and blissful harbor. There's no need of ceremonial talk between us. Tang Xiu patted her back and smilingly said. Anyhow, the trouble has been solved and your business will become more and more prosperous later, and you'll probably be very busy too. But, it won't affect your schooling, right? Mu Weining released Tang Xiu, shook her head and said, no, it won't. The schedule for a graduate student is very relaxed. Besides, I already finished the subject I must study, so I don't need to attend classes on the campus next semester. As long as I do my reviews regularly, I can complete the final graduation thesis. With that said, she seemed to recall something and quickly asked, you just contacted so many people today, will it affect you? If it will, I can return all the deposits, Anne. Tang Xiu raised his hand to interrupt her and smilingly said, no worries. It won't affect me whatsoever. I spared those two guys because they reminded me of one thing. I myself have my own network, and it would be wasteful if I don't use it. In any case, they also need to find an advertising company to cooperate, to begin with. Since we can earn money, there's no reason to shy away from it. A smile outlined on the corner of Mu Weiniang's mouth. The oia word used by Tang Xiu was like a sweet honey poured into her heart, giving a sweet feeling to her whole being. At midday, Tang Xiu stayed at the Grace Regale Advertising with Mu Weiniang and had a lunch together before he left. He had pulled in many businesses to Mu Weiniang, thus she might be very busy in the following days. On the way back to the Blue Star Villa, Tang Xiu then remembered Ouyang Lulu, who should still be asleep at his home. After hesitating, he decided to head to the nearby shopping mall to buy her new clothes. After all, he was rather extreme last night by directly ripping her clothes. However, in regards to buying clothes for a woman, especially underwear, he was but a green rookie, and this made him helpless. After giving it a thought, someone appeared inside his mind, Yu Kai. This guy possessed quite the potential to become a playboy, as his inherent nature was one of being flashy and showy. They had been studying at Shanghai University for a semester, but Tang Xiu heard him talking about dating 7 or 8 girlfriends already. The speed at which he changed girlfriends was even faster than getting new clothes. So, he thought that this guy was very experienced at buying clothes for women. Golden Eagle Shopping Mall. It was a high-end shopping mall in Shanghai, with rows upon rows of stores with dazzling goods anyone wished to find. Yu Kai held a handbag in his armpit while biting a toothpick. He dressed up neatly and was strolling around accompanied by a pretty girl he had just acquainted himself with for about 10 days. I want a Hermes bag, honey. The pretty girl pulled Yu Kai's arm with a coquettish manner. Her bright eyes were constantly sweeping through each extravagant shop. A Hermes bag? Inwardly, Yu Kai shivered. Though his family was indeed rich, and his mother secretly gave him more money regularly, his monthly allowance was only 20,000 yuan. Not to mention that he was also a spendthrift. The 20,000 yuan he got after the new year now remained only 8,000 yuan. However, he still had a credit card with a 100,000 yuan limit. But, it could be said that this credit card was like his immovable property, and he did not want to use it unless he came across something that forced him to use it as a last resort. He wanted to refuse his new girlfriend's request, but looking at her pretty face as well as her coquettish and seductive voice, he did not have the heart to reject her. After some hesitation, he finally nodded and said, since you want it, then let's buy it. You're really handsome, honey. The girl looked pleasantly surprised and then stood on her toes to kiss Yu Kai's cheek. Yu Kai grinned and smilingly said, of course, I am. Even those Korean stars are not qualified to even carry my shoes. Anyways, if I hadn't booked a room at the Shangri-La Hotel to have a pleasant night with you tonight, I would have directly brought you to Jingmen Island to ride a yacht. The girl's eyes turned brighter, but she intentionally turned her head with a shy expression and said, I do want to go to Jingmen Island to ride a yacht. I wish I could. Yu Kai regretfully said. Unfortunately, I don't have much time. Wait until my school holidays later, then I'll take you to Jingmen Island to have some enjoyment. Ring ring ring. At this time, the ringtone of his mobile phone sounded. Chapter 694, Material Girl and Being Trampled on 2 in 1. The aim of Yu Kai in picking up girls was to move their motionless feelings. A beautiful woman was just like wine, who had thoughts and considerations of her own, and a man must act, and at the same time, do everything he could to capture her heart, showing his appreciation with kind words or gifts to showcase himself as a strong and real a man. But in regards to feelings, Yu Kai was not one who was able to invest in them. For instance, this girl beside him. What she settled on was Yu Kai's money, while the latter was taking a fancy in her flesh. finding amusement when the occasion arises and nothing else but for fun. So as to make Xie Xiaotong give up her ballooning appetite, he directly took out his mobile phone and secretly sighed upon seeing that the caller on the screen was Tang Xiu's name. As a man himself, he deeply admired Tang Xiu in his way of chasing and picking up girls, for those top bells were like moths fluttering to a flame. He had never seen what kind of magic trick and spell Tang Xiu cast on them, and yet, all those bells gathered around him. Big bro, Tang, you've always been busy, how come you remembered me? Did you miss me? Envy and admiration may mix together, but Tang Xiu was his classmate, dorm mate, and a brother Yu Kai approved and identified himself with, so chit-chatting and teasing was a must-have. Bah, cut the garrulous crap, will you? Tang Xiu mocked him. Anyways, I got something to consult, or rather, ask your help with. Whoa, no kidding? Pretending to be surprised, Yu Kai called out. Does big bro, Tang want me to be there for your beck and call? Then, tell me, it will be my pleasure to serve you. Can you not happily chew the rag? Tang Xiu snappily said. I have some time and want to buy something, but I'm not experienced in this area. Let's just meet and chat. What thing did you talk about? Asked Yu Kai immediately. Women's clothes. Tang Xiu touched his nose and smiled dryly. Yu Kai rolled his eyes, immediately patted his chest and said, I may not be sure of other aspects, but I guarantee that I can make you satisfied regarding buying women clothes, buddy. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. He quickly glanced at Xie Xiaotong beside him and smilingly said, What a coincidence. It just so happens that I'm also taking my paid girlfriend to the Golden Eagle shopping mall. Do you know the Golden Eagle shopping mall in Hong District? It's on Tianhua Avenue. Yeah, I know it. I'm in the vicinity. Then come over now. I'm in the Hermes exclusive store on the 6th floor. Got it. After hanging up the phone, Yu Kai stuffed the mobile phone into his pocket and rubbed his hands with an excited expression. He did not know about others, but he knew perfectly well that Tang Xiu was a super rich who lived in an extravagant home and drove a luxurious car, a guy wallowing in money. He was now short on money, and now that this guy came over, it was simply a timely rain from the sky, a friend in need indeed. Xie Xiaotong looked at his expression and curiously asked, Who called you, honey? Seems like that person is coming here too, no? With a somewhat brazen smile, Yu Kai said, A buddy of mine. He owes me some money. I don't have much pocket money recently. The reason being is, he borrowed most of my money. It seems like this buddy of mine recently hit a fortune and he'll pay me back my money. Xie Xiaodong's eyes lit up and she held Yu Kai's hand tighter. Originally, Yu Kai spent money in front of her extravagantly, proving that he was rich and lavish. He even still had more money, but he lent it to his friend. Xie Xiaodong thought that Yu Kai would buy her famous brand clothes and various articles of luxury goods as well as dealing with her bills. The thought immediately excited her and made her lower body feverish at the moment, for she could not wait to employ every trick of horse riding art she had to make him prostrate under her skirt. All right, let's have a look at the bags first. Let's go. 10 minutes later, Tang Xiu came to the 6th floor of the Golden Eagle shopping mall and spent some time to find the Hermes exclusive store. When he saw the smiling Yu Kai watching a girl who was unceasingly choosing handbags, he immediately came to him and then said, I did not disturb you, did I, Yu Kai? The way Yu Kai looked at Tang Xiu was like he was seeing a gold mountain. He shook his head like a beaten drum, and his face, that was as beautiful as a woman's, wore a bright smile as he replied while rubbing his hands, Nope. How come you're disturbing me? Anyways, you borrowed money from me, can you pay it back? You don't know, buddy. I have been so poor recently that I did not have a thing to eat at all. Just look at that pretty girlfriend of mine. She wants to buy a bag but I'm almost broke myself. Tang Xiu stared blankly and found that the girl who chose the bag also looked up to see him, but did not pay attention anymore and continued choosing the handbag. Then, he immediately looked at Yu Kai and, shaking his head, smilingly said, "How much is it?" 50,000 yuan, answered Yu Kai immediately. Tang Xiu smiled and secretly stuffed his hand into his pocket and took out 50,000 yuan in cash from his interspatial ring. He threw it to Yu Kai directly and said, "Well, I'm returning the money to you, but don't take your words back and help me get my things done, then the account between us is cleared." It was Yu Kai's turn to stare blankly, with eyes staring so wide they almost popped out, staring at the Tang Xiu's pocket. If it wasn't for him holding 50,000 yuan in hand and counting them, he would have come over to rummage that pocket. How could 50,000 yuan in cash be stuffed into such clothes? "Big bro, Tang, did you just conjure some magic?" Tang Xiu snappily replied, "That was originally the money I withdrew to buy the clothes. But I did not expect it to be exactly the amount I needed to return to you. So, do you want it or not? If you don't, then give it back." "Hell no, who said no?" Yu Kai put the 2 stacks into his pocket, and then went to the checkout counter and dropped the remaining 30,000 yuan on it. He then said to his girlfriend, "Xie Xiaotong, hurry and pick your choice, babe. I already put the money in the checkout counter, so you can pay the bill directly. Keep the rest for your pocket money if there's some left. My buddy and I will go out to the entrance to smoke and have a chat." "Got it." At the moment, Xie Xiaotong held a Hermes bag she took a fancy in, and her sharp eyes glanced at the checkout counter and saw 3 stacks of red 100 yuan bills placed on it. She immediately put down the Hermes bag in her hand and selected another slightly worse quality and much cheaper bag in the next partition. Buying a bag was her motive, but if the rest of the money was for her own pocket money, she did not want to waste too much. At the store entrance, there was an embarrassed expression on Yu Kai's face as he rubbed his hand and spoke with a dry smile, "Thanks for this time, big bro, Tang. I'll pay you back next month." Tang Xiu could not help but laugh and said, "We're brothers, so leave out talking about money since it's kinda offensive, don't you think? Anyways, are you available to help me pick some women clothes? Your matter is of the utmost importance in the heaven and earth, big bro, Tang." Yu Kai nodded. Let alone girls, even if such a great event as the sky falling, they must be put aside first. "Anyhow, let me see," and bade farewell to that girl first before we go shopping. "That girl? Are you doing it for fun?" asked Tang Xiu curiously. Yu Kai lit a cigarette, puffed twice, and said, "Without having some fun, don't tell me I have to invest in some feelings too now? I know perfectly well that women nowadays are very materialistic. You too heard what Qingsong said before, no? The craving for material things reigns in this age of materialism, where money is the principle of truth. Women, TSK. Just have fun and playing with them will do. If you do have a good life later, you may meet a good one and marry her so you can be said to make a hit yourself. If you don't chance upon one, you might as well be muddle-headed." Tang Xiu rolled his eyes at him. He was helpless as far as Yu Kai's deranged fallacy was concerned. However, each and every person had their own circumstance, and naturally had a different way of thinking as well. At present, Yu Kai said what he thought as if seemingly the truth, but maybe he would meet a girl one day, one who could satisfy what his heart had been wishing for and step into the matrimony sanctuary ahead of time, ultimately hugging a chubby boy earlier. "Dear, I want the latest Hermes bag." A coquettish voice came from the left side, as a woman with a voluptuous body and beautiful looks held a handsome young man who was donned in various famous brands from head to toe. Her posture was literally almost hanging on the young man. A smile outlined on the handsome young man's mouth as he said, "Then buy it. You can buy them if you like it, honey. We'll buy 3 to 5 of them." The girl's eyes lit up and she immediately said with pleasant surprise, "You're the best, dear. I'll serve you and definitely make you feel great after we go back home tonight." "I love it." During the chat, The couple walked past Tang Xiao and Yu Kai. They did not even glance at them and headed straight into the Hermes store. What a foolish spendthrift. Yu Kai rolled his eyes and whispered. Tang Xiao's smile looked strange as he commented, I think you're just same, mate. Yu Kai was stunned and his face immediately blushed with shame. He touched his nose and coughed, no, it's different. Absolutely different. At least I never said, honey, we'll buy 3 to 5 as long as you love them. Tang Xiao ruthlessly slammed him, that is because you're poor as dirt. Yu Kai's face was pulled down and said helplessly, big bro, Tang, don't send me such a deadly blow, will you? If I had a financial source like yours, I would have been disinclined to see that woman inside or the woman who just passed by. I'd definitely find myself the best women. Tang Xiao shook his head and did not feel like responding to this creature again. After the cigarette was completely burned out, Yu Kai then called Tang Xiao and walked toward the Hermes store. Just as he strode inside and saw the situation there, his expression instantly turned gloomy, since his girlfriend Xie Xiaotong acted so intimately, pulling the arm of the handsome young man who had just entered the store and tried her best to fawn upon him, while the other woman also did not want to be outdone by her and took the young man's other hand. Much to Yu Kai's indignation, the handsome young man seemed to welcome the two beauties, with his arms coiled around their shoulders while his fingers slid across their makeup-covered faces from time to time. You both are my babes. This young master is very happy today, so you can pick whatever bag you like and I'll pay it, said the handsome young man with a particularly bright smile. Xie Xiaotong. Yu Kai dashed a few steps forward and shouted, looking incensed. The girl glanced at him and looked flustered. She hurriedly released the handsome young man's hand and wanted to break free from his hand. But that handsome young man obviously heard Yu Kai's shout clearly as he furrowed his brows. Not only did he not loosen Xie Xiaotong's shoulder, he even forcefully pulled her to his chest. Ugh. Xie Xiaotong somewhat regretted it. She had just seen young Master Wu and was so excited that she forgot herself and ran straight to the young man, and did everything to please him. She knew his identity as the only son of the Wanjian group, who grew up with a golden spoon since childhood. He was rich and handsome with an illustrious identity, an existence a countless number of people would look up to in the future. He was simply the perfect wealthy husband in her eyes. Asterisk, this should be chapter 695, asterisk. Being trampled on. Xie Xiaotong was once fortunate enough to be invited when a certain group of scions held a party, and the one she served was this young Master Wu. She did her best to serve him that night, and not only did she win this young man's favor, she also obtained tens of thousands of yuan. Following that, she was also often called to serve him from time to time. However, she knew she had just created trouble looking at the angry Yu Kai. Though Yu Kai was only a freshman at Shanghai University, he probably came from a notable, wealthy family given his extravagant spending. Yu Kai's angry eyes instantly landed on Wu Guanghui and roared, "Let the girl go, you fucktard." Wu Guanghui raised his brows. Not only did he not release Xie Xiaotong, but also lowered his face to kiss her, shot Yu Kai a provocative look, and then casually said, "Who the hell is this rubbish?" "Xiaotong, honey. Where the hell did this bloke come from? Do you know him?" Xie Xiaotong knew how Wu Guanghui acted to a certain degree, and in particular, his habit to seek revenge for the smallest grievance, and his pettiness was also notoriously famous in his social circle. She would end up miserable if she made him lose face today. After hesitating and weighing the importance of Yu Kai and Wu Guanghui inside her mind, the balance counter immediately fell to the latter. She raised her pretty face, shook her head and said, "I don't know him, young Master Wu." Wu Guanghui nodded in satisfaction, hoisted his face toward Yu Kai a few times and sneered, "Did you hear that, punk? My honey, Xiaotong, doesn't know you. You're just hopelessly picking up a fight, aren't you?" Yu Kai stared at Xie Xiaotong in disbelief. He had planned to beat the guy, but Xie Xiaotong's answer was like a heavy slap in the face. literally trashing his complexion and burning his face. She doesn't know me? The woman who he had slept with a few days ago now said that she did not know him just to fawn upon another man? Yukai took a deep breath, trying to contain his anger inside. He pointed at Wu Guanghui and shot a "you got guts" look, and then turned around and walked away. Just as he was about to step out of the store door, he suddenly remembered something and walked back to the checkout counter, grabbed the 30,000 yuan, and then spoke to the elegant and beautiful cashier in a deep voice. Yukai, am a rich guy, but I'm not giving my money to that bitch. You, on the other hand, are much better since you make a living by your own skills. I'm leaving this money for you to pick wherever bag you like. Just count it as a present. With that said, he went straight to the entrance door without looking back. The elegant and beautiful cashier was utterly dumbfounded as she held the 30,000 yuan Yukai gave her. She looked at Xie Xiaotong and then looked at Yukai's back with a sympathetic expression. However, she then turned around to speak to her female colleague in a whisper and then chased toward the outside. At the shop's entrance, Tang Xiu heard Yukai's yell, but he did not go inside. Though he did not know what happened inside, he did not want to meddle in the love affair issues between Yukai and his girlfriend. Are you okay? Asked Tang Xiu casually after seeing Yukai come out with a sullen face. Yukai spat to the side, shook his head and said with a scowl, "It's nothing. I just had some fun with a bitch for a couple of days, and now I want to go home to wash my body since I'm done with her." Tang Xiu sighed inwardly as he nodded and said, "Since you're fine, let us just leave." The female cashier appeared in front of him holding the 30,000 yuan, quickly blocked Yukai's path, and said, "Hello, sir. This is your money, I can't accept it." Interesting. This fucking bastard is really interesting. You know, a nobody is still a nobody, for no one will accept money from a fucktard like you. Wu Guanghui came out from the inside while hugging the two women's shoulders. He had heard Yukai cursing Xie Xiaotong as a bitch and was very angry inwardly. He came out and planned to humiliate Yukai, but did not expect to be a godsend opportunity just as he came out. In an instant, Yukai's face turned extremely nasty. The female cashier had watched all the unfolded causes and everything that followed. She knew that this young Master Wu was not a good man. She knew that this guy was using her to mock Yukai, making her sympathize with the latter, and quickly said, "That's not true. There's a regulation in our store that no employees are allowed to receive tips and any benefits from our customers." Wu Guanghui frowned, and there was an annoyed look in his eyes, as he shouted at her in a deep voice, "Shut the hell up." Tang Xiu, who stood by at the side and looked at the fearful-looking female cashier, as well as the nasty-looking Yukai, secretly sighed inwardly and spoke to Wu Guanghui, "Dude, go easy on them. You already have the upper hand, so stop it here and now. It's not worth it for you to make enemies just because of women, especially for such casual women." Wu Guanghui let out a complacent smile and only glanced at Tang Xiu. His eyes then fell again on Yukai's unsightly expression. On the contrary, it was Xie Xiaotong who was fuming, unable to bear being the target of Tang Xiu's ugly remark, as she cussed angrily, "Who the hell are you? It's none of your damn business. What are you, to mind others' fucking business? Careful with your words. Who the hell did you say was a casual woman, huh? What a dickhead." The other woman also swayed her voluptuous waist and indignantly said, "Did you wash your mouth with shit? Look at your destitute and sour appearance, yet you want to be the third wheel in others' business? Relying on yourself you want to trifle with me?" Wu Guanghui looked overjoyed and kissed Xie Xiaotong and the other woman's face and unreservedly praised them, "My two babies, you really can talk, eh? Anyways, your young master's mood is very great today, so good that I will treat and love you well tonight." Tang Xiu watched the trio in disgust, and then looked at the female cashier and lightly said, "My brother gave the money to you. Just accept it. You're outside the store now, so the rules of your employer no longer apply to you." With that said, he patted Yukai's shoulder, shook his head and said, "Let's just go." Do you want to bite back the mad dogs who just bit you? Just go back home, take a bath and wash your bad luck. Yu Kai nodded. He did not get angry with that female cashier, though she had to give back his money, and it was used by Wu Guanghui to mock him. He, on the contrary, admired her, because that 30,000 yuan was probably equal to 1 or 2 months of her salary.
Yeah,
right. Wu Guanghui rolled his eyes and looked at Tang Xiu and Yu Kai with disdain. He was regretting wasting time to taunt these two trashes, so he might as well spend his time having fun with these two women. At this moment, his totally unconcerned eyes drifted from Tang Xiu and Yu Kai and were about to turn back to the store, as his eyes caught sight of someone and his expression moved all of a sudden. He immediately released the two women and strode past Tang Xiu, towards a pair of handsome man and woman who were passing by another place about a dozen meters away from them. Hello, Brother Chu. The man and the woman halted their pace. When the man saw Wu Guanghui rushing over, a disgusted look flashed in his eyes, but he nodded at him and said, "It's you, little Wu. Did your dad send you out of the company?"
Yeah,
I did great in the company recently, Brother Chu, so Dad gave me a holiday. I never thought I would bump into you here today. It's really a pleasure and honor for me. Anyways, is this big sis-in-law? Wow, she's really a fairy. A goddess. Wu Guanghui looked at the woman next to Chu Yuan, feeling very envious inside, though he still kept flattering without a change in expression or his voice. Chu Yuan only let out a faint smile and did not feel like explaining his relationship with Shuiyu. He did take the initiative to invite Shuiyu out for a walk today. Since Shuiyu herself just came to Shanghai and had already bought her enough daily necessities and clothes with Tang Xiu before, she still proposed to visit the venue and was planning to buy some clothes, accessories, and jewelry for herself. It was because she wanted to dress herself up to look beautiful in order to attract Tang Xiu. Suddenly, Chu Yuan's expression moved, because he caught sight of two men in front, and one of them was unexpectedly Tang Xiu. He subconsciously glanced at Shuiyu and found that she also saw Tang Xiu and straightly walked towards him. How come you are here? Tang Xiu felt somewhat helpless inside upon seeing Shuiyu and Chu Yuan. However, he felt quite amused and annoyed to see Wu Guanghui, who previously acted so rampant and arrogant, now rushed over to Chu Yuan's front to greet him with such a humble manner. Shuiyu let out a faint smile and grabbed Tang Xiu's arm, saying, "Chu Yuan called me out to take a walk today. It's kinda boring to go to the tea house, so I brought him here since I wanted to buy some clothes and jewelry." Tang Xiu nodded at her. He then looked at Chu Yuan and said, "How was it? Were you able to persuade her? Haven't you seen what her character is like?" Chu Yuan shook his head. She'll never budge on what she has decided upon, not even 10 bulls can pull her. Anyways, it's you who is too excessive, Tang Xiu. You just left her as your lover only. It was me who was willing. Shuiyu interjected with an irritated expression. Tang Xiu could not help laughing. He shifted his sight to Yu Kai, who was gaping in astonishment, and then Wu Guanghui, who was utterly dumbfounded and tongue-tied. While pointing at the latter, he asked, "Do you know this brat?"
yeah,
I know his father. Chu Yuan nodded. I have had some business deals with him. This brat is kind of a rotten apple, the type of unbridled and arrogant young master, said Tang Xiu. You had better lessen your contact with him and his father later, since he is probably as bad as him for teaching such a son. If you can opt not to cooperate with him later, then try not to, so as to save your own money. Did this brat provoke you or something? Asked Chu Yuan, surprised. It's nothing. Tang Xiu waved his hand. It's just a trivial thing, there's no need to stoop down to his level. Anyhow, let me introduce you to this guy. He's Yu Kai, a brother and a fellow student of mine in university. Yu Kai, this is Chu Yuan, it's fine for you to call him Brother Chu later. Hello, Brother Chu. I've already heard your great name before. You're simply a legend in the business circle in Shanghai, an awesome figure in the domestic financial industry. Yu Kai hurriedly stretched his hand out to shake hands. Anyways, I did not expect you to be friends with Big Bro, Tang though. Chu Yuan's acted very humbly, and after he shook hands with Yu Kai, he said with a smile, "Please don't tease me and compare me with Boss Tang, brother Yu. I don't even qualify to carry his shoes." Chapter 695, A Foolish Rich Man? Never did it cross Yu Kai's mind that Chu Yuan would speak such a lavish praise on Tang Xiu. He then recalled all the performances showcased by Tang Xiu previously and finally realized something. Tang Xiu's identity was probably very extraordinary. "Big Bro, Tang, Yu Kai opened his mouth but hesitated to continue. Inwardly, Tang Xiu felt rather helpless. Chu Yuan praised him too lavishly in front of Yu Kai in a way that it was impossible for him to back down anymore. After hesitating for a moment, he also did not want to conceal it anymore and explained, "I'm the owner of the magnificent Tang Corporation as well as the Everlasting Feast Hall. The money I have is probably more than people can imagine, to be honest. But money is nothing but mere worldly possessions in my eyes. Regardless of whatever identity each one of us has, we are brothers of the same kindred spirits." Yu Kai looked a bit astonished. He did not know what to say all of a sudden upon seeing how tranquil Tang Xiu's expression was. On the other hand, Wu Guanghui nearby was unable to restrain his body, trying not to shiver, as a horrified expression burst out from his eyes. The magnificent Tang Corporation and the Everlasting Feast Hall? The Everlasting Feast Hall was one of the best high-end restaurants in Shanghai, and Wu Guanghui also knew that it was not its main office, but only a branch. He would not have been this shocked if it was only this restaurant franchise, but the reputation of the magnificent Tang Corporation was too astounding for him. In particular, he just heard his father speaking to him a few days ago that the magnificent Tang Corporation just bought a large plot of land in Shanghai, and was preparing to build its HQ as well as an industrial park. Nearly all the top 20 construction companies in the country received an invitation from this company, of which the tender would be held soon. His family owned the Myriad Construction Group, and it could only be ranked as a mid-sized construction company in the country, thus not eligible to participate in the construction project tender held by the magnificent Tang Corporation. But his father also said that if it worked well, they could cooperate with the company that won the bid and that they could make a fortune even if they only got some soup. Pa! Wu Guanghui suddenly slapped his own face, and his unbridled and arrogant manner had completely vanished. Instead, he looked full of remorse and regret as he said, "Tang. Boss Tang, I was just muddle-headed and failed to recognize a great man such as you before. Please do not stoop down to my level if I have offended you. Okay, just hurry up and continue having fun with your girls." Tang Xiu waved his hand in disgust. "Don't make a fool of yourself here." At this very moment, Xie Xiaotong, who just caught up, was stunned, for she had never dreamed that Tang Xiu turned out to be the big boss of the magnificent Tang Corporation, and also seemed to have other industries other than this company as well. She recalled herself ridiculing and insulting him a while ago. Her whole being suddenly turned tense and restless, and the regret made her feel like dying. She just compared them and suddenly found that Wu Guanghui, who was already very outstanding in the eyes of many people, was far worse than Tang Xiu. The latter was self-employed and built his own enterprise, and became the true owner of such a major company, while the former was only a scion of a rich family, a second-generation nouveau riche, and a playboy silk pants. Pa! Suddenly, a slap hit her face. And the one who did that was Wu Guanghui. Wu Guanghui rolled up his sleeves and, after slapping Xie Xiaotong's face, he pointed at her and cursed furiously. "It was because of you, bitch. You're the one who seduced me. Had I known you and this you, Mr. You knew each other, how the hell would I dare to even touch you? Get the hell out of here. And don't let me see you again later." Xie Xiaotong looked dull after getting slapped. Never did she expect that this guy would slap her all of a sudden and make her a scapegoat as if all his mistakes were all caused by her. She felt humiliated, and yet, the regret she felt was even more. She admitted that she was not a good woman, but little did she think that her flattery would lead to this situation. At this moment, she suddenly felt that her stupidity was already beyond limits. For her snobbishness was nothing but making her a plaything for men, a slut. Bitch. The vocabulary replayed inside her mind, and Xie Xiaotong's heart was like being pierced by needles, painful. Her face was instantly devoid of color. She did not fight back nor did she get angry. She was as though she had lost her soul as she staggeringly walked away, carried by her footsteps. Tang Xiu calmly watched as the scene unfolded. He had not the slightest sympathy for Xie Xiaotong. For one to be pitted, she or he must have a detestable side, and yet, she was the one who brought disaster upon herself for the situation and consequences of today's incident. He was also disgusted by Wu Guanghui and did not want to even look at him again, saying, "Chu Yuan, are you going to continue strolling around? Or?" Without waiting for Chu Yuan to answer, Shui Yu straightforwardly spoke, "No, we won't go shopping together. I'm going with you." Chu Yuan opened his mouth and a forced, wry smile appeared on his handsome face. He then shook his head and sighed. It's as people said, that a woman who has gone out to marry a man is truly like something that has been lost and cannot be retrieved. Anyways, Jade Beauty is paying more attention to her lover than her friend, so I'm going back myself first. Tang Xiu, remember your promise to drink with me some other day. Tang Xiu smiled at him and nodded with eyes following Chu Yuan's departure. At this time, Yu Kai had a complicated mood. He looked at the beautiful Shui Yu beside Tang Xiu and then looked at the latter and spoke, "About your things, do you still need my help?" Tang Xiu scrunched up for a moment before shaking his head and saying, "Seems like we gotta forget it. You are not in the mood, and since I met Shui Yu here, I'll take her to accompany me." Okay, then. Yu Kai was indeed not in the mood right now and nodded happily. Just as he walked away for a few steps, he suddenly recalled something and his pace came to a halt. He then turned around and asked loudly, "Big bro, Tang, are the clothes you want to buy for her?" "No." Tang Xiu shook his head. Holy cow. Yu Kai's heart was as good as dead at this time. The comparison between them was pretty much odious, and his spirit was thoroughly dying. He had seen too many Casanovas, yet never seen such an amazing expert who could outspokenly say to buy clothes for another woman with his lover. Your money. The female cashier from the Hermes exclusive store had yet to leave, so she witnessed the entire farce from the beginning to the end. She was extremely disgusted by Wu Guanghui and despised him, and even held Xie Xiaotong in an unusual contempt since she felt that she was a disgrace to all women. Nevertheless, she did sympathize with Yu Kai at first but felt happy for him afterward. Although she never expected that the big boss of the magnificent Tang Corporation turned out to be just a handsome young man, but for Yu Kai to have such a brother was definitely a good karma that was sowed after having been cultivated for several generations. What is the so-called brotherhood? This big boss of the magnificent Tang Corporation had spoken about this, that it was something that the thought of the people involved in the bond that matter. Brothers would not bother mentioning wealth and money. Either being rich or destitute, brothers were brothers. So what this was called? This was the so-called genuine nature of what a real man was. Yu Kai was taken aback and looked back to at Tang Xiu again, only to find that Tang Xiu just beckoned at him and brought Shui Yu away. Just take the money. What has been given to someone is something one cannot take back. Taking it back will only mean that person is shameless. If anything, it was Big Bro, Tang who actually gave me the money. Besides, he's a super rich guy, so you should not take it seriously. Finding that Yu Kai was going to leave, the female cashier quickly blocked his path, shook her head and said, "No, a gentleman must never hand out a meal in contempt, and this is not my money either. I already told you that I don't want it. Besides, I don't think your brother is likely someone to owe money. It was you who did not have enough money to pick up a girl and borrowed it from him, right? Anyhow, I've been wanting to speak to you about this before, but I held back since we're just strangers. But now, I can't think that much anymore. Pretending to be a scion from a wealthy family with others' money won't make you a real man. You're still young, so it is the time for you to study or start a business. It doesn't matter if you don't have money now. Just don't seek enjoyment and pleasure at first and wait until you earn enough money. Like those two women just now, they definitely cost you a great deal. Thus, I ask you to take this money back. Again, Yukai was taken aback. He looked at this female cashier in disbelief and felt his face burning. He had just gotten humiliated by Wu Guanghui and it was already quite a grievous blow to him. To think that even an attendant was now looking down on him, a nefarious flame was immediately set ablaze inside his heart. He reached out to grab the 30,000 yuan and stuffed it into her pocket, and then grabbed her hand and strode towards the store. After entering, Yukai released the struggling female cashier's hand. He then picked the nearest 4 Hermes bags and directly dropped them on the checkout counter. Then, he took out a credit card and spoke in a heavy tone, "Swipe this card. I'll buy these 4 bags." The female cashier looked stunned, and then her expression turned into that of surprise. Did I just misread him? Didn't he borrow the money to pick up that girl? Is he really rich? Countless question marks fluttered around in her head. She hesitated for a short while, as she forced out a wry smile and said, "If what I spoke to you wrong, I beg you to forgive me and not to be offended by my ignorance. Please don't be angry and try to prove yourself in front of me. There's no need for you to buy those 4 bags all at once. You must know that the total price of these 4 bags is 110,000 yuan. I told you to swipe the card," said Yukai with a sullen face. "You." The female cashier opened her mouth, only to find that Yukai did not even want to hear it. She suddenly felt annoyed and turned the label directly. After registering and calculating the price, she said, "The total amount of these 4 bags is 118,000 yuan. Are you sure you're going to pay them with your credit card?" "Swipe it," said Yukai adamantly. However angry and irritated she may be, the female cashier still hesitated and looked at Yukai again. After finding out that his face was cold and gloomy, only then did she pick up the credit card and swiped it. As the bill was printed out, only then did she realize that she had really misunderstood Yukai. A customer who spent 118,000 yuan meant that the person did not even need to borrow money from others. Yukai shot her a deep look before he turned around and left. The female cashier was speechless due to astonishment. The 4 bags were still on the checkout counter, and he just left like that? After a short blank, she hurriedly called out, "Sir, you haven't taken your bags." Yukai did not even look back as he replied, "I'm in a bad mood today. I'm not even allowed to play with money and throw it out? You can take all those bags if you want. Or throw them out if you don't." The female cashier was as though zapped by thunder. Her whole being turned silly and she stood still in her spot with a blank expression. Her several colleagues around could only cast envious looks at her. She did not even remember that Yukai had also returned that 30,000 yuan to her a while ago. Ultimately, in just a short few minutes, 4 Hermes bags with a total price of 118,000 yuan were gifted to her. What's wrong with everything going on today? Did I just run into a good-for-nothing man? Or did I just bump a silly, rich local guy? And these 4 bags.